How's it going? And welcome back to another episode of the Double Swing with myself and Yumi. No guest this time, as you can tell by the empty space separating us, like a not so happy couple with a row of pillows. There's no touching, but at least we're still in the same bed. We've just finished IM Cologne. It is the Monday right after that epic grand final that played out. And I thought this would be the perfect episode for us to just take a bit of a moment to recap the scoreboard and have a think about where we are in the season. Because after Cologne, after my two favourite picks went to the grand final and played each other, where I had a very relaxed viewing experience, not to brag or anything.
Yeah.
I have been able to catch up with the viewers on the scoreboard and leaving Yumi, is it 9 points behind? It is 9 points behind as it currently stands. Still a lot of events left to go, you know. Pro League's going to be at least 2, maybe 3 videos if we're able to get a playoffs one done as well. There's going to be multiple episodes for the major. There's a lot that can change still. I'm just starting to get a little cocky, so I thought we'd take a look at that. So, Yumi, I know you enjoyed Cologne, but the result was rough. You've had a few rough events in a row now. Are you going to start changing up the strategy?
I just suck. I think I just suck. I think the problem I have is I'm almost too invested in like where I think teams should go or how I think I almost feel like I want to GM some of these teams almost to a point where I could fix them. And they're not fixing themselves currently, and so therefore I won't pick them. And then they end up doing good, and I'm like, maybe I should have just looked past the flaw, because we actually have a pretty tight-knit like top 5, I'd say. I mean, a lot of people have been extending it to top 6, but I really feel like it's like 5 teams that are properly in contention for events, and nobody's really cracked the case of being very consistent right now. So I feel like that is the safest play you can make, but I also agree in that there's a lot of events still to end off this year, and so I actually think there's a very high likelihood that we have another contender sort of step forward towards the end of this year, and then we'll have like 7 or 8 teams that are all capable of winning a title potentially, just based on the day or how much prep they have sort of lead time into events.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because for me, whilst I'm not, like, I've been a very open, like, say, let's just pick a team out at random from this, like, top 5 or 6 group. Let's say G2. I've had my opinions on their takes, on their changes, and their roster moves, but even I have never said they can't win an event. Like, I felt confident coming into Cologne, this wouldn't be it, because it feels like more like they need to, you know, just have the right moment, just a magical, synergistic moment, rather than have a pre-planned victory, but they still have that firepower, they're still dangerous. FaZe, you know, surprise us sometimes. Yeah. They do come back, and like Vitality, we were all down. All of a sudden, Cologne, some of the issues we have been witnessing, fix themselves. Spinks on the T side finds impact, finds clutches. A lot can change still, and like with Spirit taking such a massive, I guess, shoot in this last event, there's so much left up for grabs, and especially then once you factor in the events like the RMRs where it's pure chaos sometimes. Trying to separate rank 25 to rank 50 in EU is painful.
Yeah,
incredibly difficult. Even someone who, will wake up at 9 a.m. and watch random tier 2 Counter-Strike games. Even for me, who watches these teams play a lot, it's rough trying to figure them out, LAN, online, otherwise. So wide open as far as I'm concerned. Just nice to have a little bit of a lead, a cushion, going into the chaotic.
Yeah, I'm sure it's nice.
To come. It's lovely. But all right, we are going to be previewing, as it says right above my head, Blast Premier Fall Showdown 2024. Catchy as ever with the title. But this is essentially the last chance to qualify for the fall finals. For some of these teams, it's their only chance because of the closed nature of this event. But for the big names, they need to redeem themselves, essentially is what it is. The ones who fell out from the groups, they've got some ground to make up. Shall we dive straight into the picks?
Yeah, may as well.
Yeah, because you got first pick and you went somewhere I didn't expect. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, well, this is, again, you know, I don't like to just pick the option that I think probably, you know, I can't see past the flaws of a team that probably would be most people's first selection. And so I've just decided to go with a team that I'm kind of banking on to have improved from the last outing, and I think are sort of GMing themselves in the right direction, I went with NIP as my first pick. And I remember when Alex first joined this team, you actually were very high on the idea that maybe Alex could, call and get better output from his pieces. Didn't really pan out at the time.
Not really. Not initially.
Yeah, and I think that was even just kind of a shot in the dark, kind of like, it would be cool if it happens, but also you didn't really
pick at the time, It was an underdog pick. I've got to spin a yarn. I've got to make it sound believable. Like, you've got to say something. You can't just pick them and go, oh, fuck it, they won't get any points anyway.
Yeah. No, I think the weird thing for me is that I actually have come to appreciate the way and the way and the direction this team is going. One, you've got Wrinkle, you've got Maxer, and you've got Rez all serving as like these three pillars that they can pretty comfortably rely on. And I think there is still some variance and some missteps made by Rez and Maxter. But this team is like a very active, aggressive team. Like they're very explosive. They love being active on CT sides. I mean, you look at the Inferno they played against Astralis. They were always wanting to like challenge on timing down mid and like try and get timings down banana. To a fault, like they did lose that game pretty handily. So I think that's the other side of the coin for NIP. I feel like they've got a lot of players that want to do things, and I think it's better to have more of that than have that completely lacking on a roster. I feel like it's easier to rein people back than push them forward out into the front lines. And so I think just this NIP team just needs a little bit of time. This kind of a bracket as well for them, I think, is fairly favorable. Like they've got Amcal, Heroic, OG on their side of the bracket, and they only really meet the tough opponent in their side of the group, I guess. By the time they get to the sort of semifinals, like the qualifying game, so to speak. So I have NIP down because I believe in what they're building here, and I think the pieces are just aggressive enough that I think they can really just outduel a lot of these guys on the server. And I think they've got good structure that facilitates those fights as well.
Yeah, you're right on all fronts there. I just want to zone in, lock in really a bit more on the Wrinkle aspect of this, because that series he played against FaZe at, how am I blanking on the event? It was just a Blast, wasn't it? The groups.
Yeah, it was Blast groups. Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was, wizardry, witchcraft. I download the demos immediately. I still have them on my PC. Still go back and watch that Ancient every now and then when I'm just, kind of sad and lonely. I'm just like, something will cheer me up. Let's watch Wrinkle run boost himself up into the lane fight with an AWP. That'll be fun, and it is every time. Puts a smile on my face, because that was the right blend of batshit insane with absolutely prepared to perfection that I love to see from AWPers. And that's really what keeps me invested in this roster. It's Wrinkle's bizarre chaos combined with the spark of youth that I saw in Maxter on the Young Ninjas roster. Because when he stepped up out of the Young Ninjas roster, I was like, this is the proving ground. He was already really good there. You saw it. There was a not overly aggressive. Like he could really lock down sites. He was great in a two-man. If he could step up into the main team and maintain some of that impact, it'd be great. And he's come into the team. Struggled a little bit, but I still believe in his potential. His next step up, I think it can still come. He's just been adjusting to roles. I think the way this team is structured is very different to what he got used to playing in the all-Swedish academy. Well, it was actually already 40% not Swedish at that point. But the philosophies, I think, are very different with Alex having come in. So I think he's still getting used to everything. But he's got so much potential, so much star potential, that I'm very excited. So no, I love this pick as much as I think it's a gamble. Because I do think I have my own pick who should be meeting them in that semi-final. Should everything work out for you. I don't think they're going to beat them. I find it rather difficult to envision.
I mean, if you just want, do you want to reveal who?
Oh yeah,
who
I can reveal it. Everyone who knows the bracket knows exactly who I mean. The obvious number one pick in this entire event, which is FaZe Clan. Like
who they beat at groups.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, no,
completely indifferent, because FaZe Clan at groups looked half the team they were in Cologne, and that team still got knocked out by Saw. But that's not the point. I mean, Saw were just an outstandingly well prepared and well executed team. Let's just put it that way. But they actually had a lot of things going for them that we have been harping on that haven't been present. ROP's activity, Frozen's empty calories, the only thing that really wasn't that great, I don't remember having a good Brokey series
Yeah,
at this
no.
event. And that's weird because historically, at the events where they've not been good, they've not been making it out, Brokey's been sort of like bailing them out, him and like the occasional miracle map from Karrigan, like keeps things close, keeps them in contention. Well, no, this event is the complete opposite. We got Frozen, we got Rops, we even got flashes from Rain. Everything that has made historically FaZe Clan really competitive, really dominant, despite their ever-aging lineup, despite having been together so long and not having a superstar level player. They've always kept on plotting, kept on winning, kept on grinding out success. It's a lot due to the Rifle Core. And if now you can come into this online event, a little less pressure, maybe get some more flashiness out of Brokey, I don't see why I wouldn't be picking this team to go all the way.
Yeah, I think the thing that scares me about FaZe is that I don't think they even know themselves how they want to be playing right now. I think there was that interview from Karrigan that came out that was basically saying he's micromanaging it almost like it's like a pug to a certain extent. Like they're a lot more loose. There's less all the protocols they had written up or all these foundations they'd laid, they have effectively scrapped coming into that Cologne. And yeah, it looked a lot better than some of the, I guess, more recent FaZe results, but it's still, I don't know, it just leaves me so much to be desired. Like I don't want you to have to always just drive for initiative fights on Rops or Frozen. Like that, why are we straying away from strategies that will close the gap against teams that actually can challenge for titles now? And instead we're playing a very individual focused game. I don't like that direction on FaZe. I do think, good. It is nice to see Rops kind of re-emerge, even though he claims he's not really a star player. I mean, he's in
Bit of a weird statement, that one, I thought.
yeah. He's also in positions where it's like you are actually kind of in a good position here. You're in a good role that you should be getting good numbers, and he put them up. So, yeah. No, I think they did address some problems, but it's like when you're fixing code as a computer scientist, you fix one bug and another one crops up, or hell, even 8 more. And I think FaZe are just, I think, lacking inspiration right now, which is, I guess, tough for a roster that has so many players that can be so dominant. It's weird to look at, but yeah, they are no doubt like the favorite within this group. I just think they can be toppled, and given that we are best of threes, no second lives in the showdown, I worry they might not even get to that part of the bracket.
No, you see, I'm not worried about that at all. I should be. There's definitely upset potential in every single one of these sort of brackets. But I think about like what worked at this event, like Frozen taking almost 26% openings, like matching Rain in terms of at least opening volume. What is this? Like, we have not seen this level of aggressiveness from Frozen for a while. It's what led to me, championing the idea that they should be, if they cut Rain, looking to actually bring in not a particularly aggressive rifler, but a rifler who forces Frozen into those like leading positions where he actually has to go and take fights and challenge because he has the aim for it. There's never been a doubt about that. It's just about getting him into those positions to actually use it. So that for me has made me very optimistic. I might get completely upset. Hell, no, I was about to joke. They're not going to lose to Rarata. But maybe some of the other series could pose them some troubles. But I think I've got some contingency plans for that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to your next pick because, we've hinted at this, sort of in the introduction, and you've gone back to them again. Like last time you left with two black eyes, walked into a door. But here he goes again, back to the abusive ex.
Yeah, no, it is. I have selected Virtus Pro. But I think my problem when I saw who they had in their group, I did just have to just bet on them. Really, like I not betting advice. I just think zero tenacity. They've got Big in there. There's Metasport. There's complexity. There's Falcons. Falcons actually looked a lot better at Cologne than I think people were expecting them to perform. I guess expectations have been set so low that any result is a result, but better than Virtus Pro, and they did beat them there. I just can't not want this roster to do well on the side of Virtus.pro. I find it so difficult to be angry at this team when I see the vision, I see what can be. It just hasn't at the moment. And yeah, I guess that is just, you know, these are old habits sort of dying hard. I feel like I was championing for them to break through for the past year, maybe even two. But yeah, I just think Electronic is such a weird addition to this team in that I thought he would provide so much more sporadic, good late round closing and all sorts. And I see him run out and die a lot, and then it doesn't go traded. And then, you know, when we see plays where before Norbert would be sort of setting up for Flit to get opening kills, it's like if Norbert doesn't kill the first guy, Flit just doesn't use his mouse sometimes. They're a very weird team in that there is no way that Flit should miss shots that are so presented to him like on a silver platter. Same with Fame in certain positions. And yet it just feels like players shut down if entries don't go their way. So I think that is like a weird mental barrier they have at the moment, because I don't see any other reason as to why these players simply don't perform in those positions, but they are set up to succeed. Like, I do think this team is setting their star players up to succeed. The star players are just weirdly not consistent enough to actually do the job that they're tasked with.
Yeah, it is odd to diagnose them in that sense. Because we've seen, like, whilst Fame has never reached, let's say, like any superstar rifle type of pretensions,
sure,
we've never been in doubt that he's plenty sharp enough to hang at tier 1. Yet it looks like he's just not right now. Like, he's just not that guy. And Flit's completely off his game. You know, the running joke seems to be, you know, it's all Electronic, you know, Team Ruiner, all this sort of narrative. Obviously, I think the game's a lot more nuanced and complicated than that, than simply Electronics come in, you know, smacked everyone with a ruler, gone, nope, don't touch the mouse, this is my fight. No, nope, these are my positions. It's not going to be not quite that simple. So I think, whilst I agree the vision that everyone had originally for this team when they came together, you know, I think I even, the first time we did a show like this, said after they'd come together, like, with Electronic, I was like, this is another super team. With Electronic joining, this makes them a super team. The absolute discouraging slide they've been on would lead you to believe we were crazy. They've lost to G2, then to Liquid, then to Big, then to Complexity, then to Falcons. It's just like, it just gets worse.
They're spiraling, yeah.
They absolutely are. And what's next? Zero Tenacity? That might be the deep dark depths they hit before they figure it out.
If it happens, I will be off Virtus Pro for at least the end of the year. You know, I'll make that vow to you right now. If they lose to Zero Tenacity, I will be off of them.
We'll see. We'll see. After last time, I didn't think you'd go back, but you just have, so... I'm not sure I trust your words just yet. Your actions have hurt this family. Such a degree that I don't think I can quite trust yet. I'll have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, we'll see. Hopefully, I do want them to obviously get back together, like, just figure themselves out. Because, yeah, I was behind this when it happened. It's almost illogical to me that it's fallen apart, so... I forgot to put your favourite on screen that entire time. There you go. There's the logo. Oh, show ruined. Cancel
it's fine. We did also dance around it for a little bit, so it was kind of like hard to find the right time. We're like, abusive X, and then I started talking about Falcons for some reason. So, you know.
No, I just completely blanked. But yeah, let's move on to my second favorite pick, who were in Virtus Pro side of the bracket, and who just beat them, which I think is rather amusing. It's Complexity, a team we have oft maligned, and quite rightly so. I think there's many a great believer in the Complexity dream, whereas myself, I just believe in Liege. The only reason I've picked this team, and the only reason I think they're actually going to have any success here. As much as I may concede that JTTC are able to come up with usually a pretty solid game plan that gets the most, close to at least, the most out of the majority of their pieces, without Elige, this roster would be struggling to make finals of CCTs. Like, this is not an insanely talented group. I've seen some people start trying to give Floppy credit. I never can. I never can get behind it, because I used to at least think, I'm sure I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I used to at least think he had the hardest positions on CT side, and that his rating, though mediocre, though technically currently below average, wasn't actually that bad, just because, you know, he's got the roughest spots. I'm sorry, guys. Nero has ruined that for everyone. According to average rating, target rating, about the same as Grimm's. But he performs a 0.1, an entire 0.1 worse on the CT side. So that's just shocking. All right, more importantly, though, don't even believe that strongly in Grimm. So why have I picked them? Well, I said at the start, I'll say it again. Elige might be the only thing worth rooting for, but he's so damn good. If he wasn't on complexity, he's having the kind of year where he'd be a top 5 player in the world. He's one of the few like elite riflers currently still circulating, still finding all their numbers, still doing whatever they physically can to actually go win matches. The problem is he's carrying so much in his backpack, and he's not a big guy, so there's only so much he can pull. This sort of bracket, though, yeah, I believe in them enough. Metasport, if this was the previous Metasport roster with Susp, with ZTR, and with Jacquinho actually calling, because currently it's Plopsky having to call with a stand-in Lumen, that might be a challenge, but no, they're going to take care of business. The winner of Falcons M80 probably ends up being a coin flip. But I like those odds. Then finally, Virtus.pro will have already been upset by this point, so they'll probably end up playing Big or Gamer Legion. Elige has just that star quality that none of these teams quite have. Nothing is polished. Maybe some players who are sharp, but no one who matches up with the NA GOAT. Let's be real. The real NA GOAT, who stayed in North America and won it all. That's my take. It's a bit rough sometimes, I think, judging, like trying to take complexity as a pick, but you just know they are good enough to beat this sort of middling sub top 10 bracket.
Sure. I think really for an event like the Showdown, I actually think it's more important that those pieces that we're critical of on complexity actually don't sort of disappear. Because I actually think Elige is one that plays up to opponents and maybe doesn't always have like he had crazy output at Cologne. But when I see him play against lower level teams, I don't see him, amplifying that by any significant amount. Like he has a ceiling on his output regardless of the opponent he's facing effectively. And that's where I think Floppy and Grimm, and to be honest, Halzerg is the second best piece on this team. And it is it is typically like when they play lower level opposition, Halzerg actually has a better time just in general than any of these riflers in terms of amplifying his output in games. I do think I guess just talking about complexity as a whole, because I don't hate the selection. Are they just wasting Elige's time if they actually don't make active roster moves? Like, does this team have the facilities to make active roster moves? Because Elige is in like great form, which is for a veteran
for himself.
Yeah, for a veteran level player that has done as much as he can for the North American region. Is he just wasting his time here? Like, should he have done something that like Twist had done to go overseas and join another team? Because there are a lot of teams that could probably use someone that actually can drive initiative and be a star in his own right, and also has better temperament. Like, I think there was a lot of conversation about Elige being like toxic or very abrasive in early Liquid before he or in Liquid before he joined Complexity, and I think he has really shifted his outlook to, well, I'm not going to get angry. I'm just going to kill more people, and hopefully we'll win games. And at the moment, they are not to the degree that I think Elige's stardom, I guess, deserves. So, yeah, I just worry they're wasting his time, kind of akin to the whole Axile, Shiro, like if those guys are in peak physical condition, you have to make use of that at the time. Otherwise, you never know if that's gonna be around 6 to 9 months from now.
Yeah, he's managed to have like a resurgence in his career no one really expected on Complexity, and they haven't done a damn thing to make it better. Like in terms of the results the team's going to have, there's not really been any positive moves. And a lot of it, I think, does come down to the conversation of can Complexity make those moves?
Yeah.
Do they actually have the money for it? And I guess not, because otherwise, surely they would have done it by now. They just would have. Maybe post-major, if they're able to make it through the Americas, make the major, get the stickers. Maybe that's a buyout. Maybe that's a pair of players coming in. Maybe they finally commit to, we can't be an NA majority team. Or if we do, we have to do it with a 2-2-1 rule and sneak our way into the Americas section. But yeah, big changes needed, I think, for them to become an elite team again and really, be a team worthy of having one of the 5 best riflers in the world, as his current form would indicate. As the rest of the event goes, there's a few favorites we haven't mentioned here. Some in passing, but some not at all. I want to talk about Heroic quickly, because you didn't pick them. I was never going to pick them if I had FaZe and Complexity available. So I'm curious, because obviously you've gone for NIP and your problem child. So what's the philosophy here? Why are we not believers in the Heroic team? I mean, we don't need to get Dexter into a country for this one.
Yeah, no, that is... Well, yeah, I mean, it's all online. I think the problem I had with Heroic at Cologne was I actually, throughout the entire narrative push for Heroic has been Nerds sure puts up like star level numbers, but there is a lot of sort of like win more conditions to getting his kills, or maybe some empty calories in there as well that does inflate his statistics. And it was a lot to do with like Shush and Tessis actually doing very well on this roster. And then opening game of Cologne, Shush, I think he had like he went like minus 30 or something. He was having a terrible time.
He didn't have a good event. Neither one of them did. Neither of the Danes looked particularly comfortable.
Which is very surprising to me, because I didn't think that. I always felt like they would be agnostic to players coming in. Like when Waro joined for a little bit, it didn't really affect them as heavily as you would, I guess. I guess that was the Shush game.
That was exactly the Shush game.
Yeah, that was the Shush game, yeah. Yeah, I just didn't think they'd be in positions that would struggle with that, because, I mean, Shush is in anchor positions, and I guess Ward will take spots, or Dexter will take spots when they're going for picks on AWPs. I lost a little bit of confidence in the pillars that I think have propped up Heroic so far. But I actually felt like I got more out of Nerds at this event.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so it felt like a weird counterbalance where suddenly the pillars I'd so fiscally relied upon now have shifted to, yeah, actually Nerds is good, and he found more impact. But maybe because those guys weren't, that he was able to, I guess, get that extra room, or felt like he had to go for plays like that.
Yeah, for me, see, if I was picking for you, if I was in your position, I think I would struggle to say no to Heroic, especially seeing as the other team they're going to match up with in that group, if we're not taking FaZe, is NIP. Yeah, I do like the odds, because look, they lose that series to Furia, but both the maps they lose are all 24 rounds. That Mirage game is Skull's best map in Tier 1, probably just point blank. Every multi-kill he got felt almost impossible, ridiculous, like round winning. It wasn't just that he got big number, high rating. It was the way it happened was ridiculously like filthy. So I think for them it was just a day where they could have won 2-0 had Skulls not decided, today I'm the best player in the server. On any server at this event, actually. Screw it. Like, that's what he was on that Mirage map. Nuke, yeah, it's the one map Fury are good at. They have to let it be the third, because their map pool hasn't really fully fleshed out, I think. With all the changes they've had, it seems like they've just not decided to integrate Dust 2. which I think would have been a far better map to go to should they understand how to play it properly. So I think like they just got themselves cornered by their own map pool there. So no, I would have liked Heroic. I'm still shaky about the Dexter comeback. I think he just needs some more reps, but that's still missing. So I think, yeah, a team with a few holes, but so many solid pieces that you can usually rely on. I think they'd have been great here. Any other favorites you like? You like to talk?
I mean, we mentioned Falcons a little bit. Like, they actually seem to have some better team play, and it felt like comms were a lot more on point, because there were a lot of games that you'd watch from Falcons where players would be like very slow to react to trades or even read next positions. So I don't know. I guess they tightened the ship a little bit, and I guess Pain is the other one, but I think Pain are again like a sort of a builder team, and I don't think they are there just yet. But I think they can do an upset within their bracket, perhaps.
Yeah, they definitely can, just because of they have quality players. Like, I think that's most importantly, they have a quality IGL who's made great use of his pieces. I think that's been their biggest asset. Beating 9Z and the Mongols was cool at Cologne for them. For me, it was annoying as a Mongols picker.
Sure.
But no, for them that was pretty cool. They end up getting G2'd.
Yeah,
because they also did the same thing everyone else did when they played G2 in the group. So they're like, hey, Saw, just beat them with a very specific set of antis. Let's just play our way anyway and lose. Like, it was so annoying to watch these games. Like, and then Mirage, absolute capitulation. Nothing to say about it. Like, having to hold angles against Malbs, Hunter, and Nico when they're having a good game. I mean, it was mostly just Malbs. Kind of impossible. Like, yeah, I think got 14 kills on the T side of that map.
Nice. Yeah.
This is why they signed him, right? It's going to happen sometimes. So no, Pain, I think, for me, they're a move away, or they are 2 years of development from like a player like Snow, away from being really scary in these sorts of moments. But as it stands, yeah, I'm not a big enough believer in Lux. Not a big enough believer in like Cowers and NQZ. Sure. I still think there's their talents. They've got room to develop. But maybe if they, for example, had been able to reunite some of the Brazilian talents that we all know are really sick, like they had managed to snap up an Insani along the way and had been working with that. I mean, Brazil probably have another legit team, right? But instead, the talent remains disparate and their results remain cold and frigid. Big? Got any big thoughts on Big?
Nothing that I don't think we brought up before.
Yeah. The play-in didn't change much for us, did it?
Yeah, not really. I mean, they're just not playing as tight on the side of Big. Like they're trying to do more just aggro choices. But then I also see Rigon just play like uncomfortably slow. Like I feel like Rigon has actually kind of messed up the dynamic for JDC and Crimbo quite a lot. Like Crimbo, I think, feels out of place with how slow the rounds are developing and how much, I guess, Rigon is playing smarter than I think his role actually demands him to be.
Yep.
And that's good for him as an individual player, but I feel like it takes away from some of the, I guess, closing or win conditions that Big should actually be posturing towards.
He's come in to replace Process. He's not really being dumb, go frag like Process was kind of asked to be. Like that was the big thing. I thought, for me, the reason I liked the idea was because Rigon is just better than Process. I think that's the unfortunate reality. Process is a guy I followed from the academy, so I really liked him in the academy roster. I thought maybe he could develop into a legit sort of like dangerous, like sort of Freiburg level entry. Like never Freiburg, like maybe Rain is the more modern example, where he's just like a 1.08, 1.09, the occasional like big impact map where you really notice him. But for the most part, just a solid, reliable piece. He never really did become that. I thought Rigon was going to be an upgrade just because he has so much experience and so much skill.
It just feels pretty samey, doesn't it?
It feels like the same sort of end product, despite that change, and in different ways, because they've got a more nuanced more capable player, but he's kind of, as you said, like negating some of the things that made the rest of the team click. So yeah, not a great move currently. Still ways to go, but I don't know. I think they've got a really tough game with Game Legion, who have been more time Game Legion spend prepping, planning away from the spotlight, the more dangerous they tend to be. And yeah, they've been excited to come out and show it. So I've got a bad feeling about that one for them.
Yeah, no, and that kind of transitions us away from favorites into underdogs. And funnily enough, my first underdog is indeed Gamer Legion, who I wasn't sure about how quickly ZTR would be able to make or I guess work with this team. I didn't really have doubts that there would be ample back-end staff to facilitate and bring him in properly. But they've looked all right in their opening officials. You know, sometimes with roster moves, you give them lead time and you think, oh, well, you know, the first, I don't know, 8 results, they can be wherever. And there has been a bit of, only a little bit of back and forth. But I don't know, I like Andu and I like Slend. And that's kind of enough for me here for Gamer Legion, because I know their game planning is going to look good. I know ZTR will be able to execute on said game plan. Like, I trust him enough as an in-game leader, and I just think the firepower hits hard. So I don't think the players have to be fully fleshed out by themselves. Like, I'm sure you put them on a brand new team or in isolation, they will play worse. But I have enough faith in the game planning for Gamer Legion, and I always have, that this type of an event is actually, I agree with you, it's like almost perfect for them because they're out of the spotlight, and then all of a sudden they come in and nobody really knows what style Gamer Legion are going to employ against you, unless you've anti-strategied your own team.
Yeah, which is rough. It's always difficult to understand exactly what there is to find when you're watching your own game, right? Because you have to specifically watch it then again with that mindset, and it's just a whole other buttload of work. No, I agree. The one thing I have just in reservation is that I'm not... Once things get off script,
Sure,
I struggle to see how this team figures it out. To be honest, though, their script might be that detailed, might be that long, might be that exhaustive, but they never have to go off it. Even if it seems like the plan A didn't work, they might have scripted plan B through D. So, you know, that could work out. I agree with you. Andu, Slend, for me, the biggest like bits of excitement in this roster. Although I must be honest, I didn't expect Flammers to be so good.
sure, yeah.
Because he has been relatively impressive. I still think on the pure eye test, I still have a little more like going towards Andu in my eyes, but the fact that they have these two just on the roster is already amazing, and that allows Volt to go play roles he prefers, according to himself. Like, he doesn't really like the more star level, more entry, more like aggressive side of things. He does like being a support. He does like being a little more, I guess, static within the game plan. So I think that's cool. That's if players are comfortable, the game plan's well thought out, and then ZTR's able to just do his thing, they'll be a legitimate threat. So no, this would have been... if there wasn't my first underdog pick involved, this would have been my team to go to. Like, they are really threatening, and I have made some bold claims for them. Close listeners of the Retake the Week show every Sunday will have heard me say that they will do better in Shanghai than G2. About as absurd as a claim can be. This is where we see how ridiculous that idea was.
Sure.
This is the step one. If they make it through to the Blast full finals by coming through this section, what can I say? Not impossible. It's not impossible at all. So yeah, great pick. Love it. I just think I was able to game plan my draft strategy a little better and get what I think is a cheat code for an underdog. You know, it doesn't get much better than this. A roster that I've created the polls for this already. I know what the fans think. I know they're on my side with this. The problem is, guys, you voted for them. I get to pick other teams. Like, I get to pick complexity from the other side of the bracket. I've got another underdog as well. It's like a fallback. You guys pick Cloud9. So only one of your picks can go through. Because you have them both from the same side.
Right, okay.
Viewers. Didn't strategize. You guys should have, I don't know, put some thought into it. But no, I've taken Cloud9 because, well, I've taken 3 picks from the same bracket just to guarantee something goes through. Because I think that's the toughest side. But more importantly, I also think this is one of the best teams to pick as an underdog. Axile, Icy, Heavy God, Boomich, Inters. Does this read like, in this sort of event, a true underdog? No, not even slightly. The way they've played at events recently has surprised me. We both said it, I think, on this show, that we kind of thought Icy might be a bit fool's gold. And I think so far we haven't been completely off. But he has been really good enough within their the way they want to play that they gave NIP and FaZe really tough matches. And FaZe one especially was the impressive one. They gave FaZe a lot to think about and they took the last map to overtime. Something I didn't think most people saw coming. And the best part about this is the win con that everyone wanted to be activated was Axile. And he did show up in a big way in a lot of their big matches. That's a really exciting part of this. We know they have a coach who's, well, he's kind of been under scrutiny in the past when Nafany was his IGL. But I think overall has a fairly solid idea of what to do with his teams. It's just sometimes you have certain eccentric pieces to work with. I think that's the Nafany element of this. How he's working with Boomich, I don't think there's any such eccentricities. He's just a guy who's going to execute the game plan and be surprisingly competent on the server a lot of the time. Inter's a solid piece, and those 3 stars we talked about before, I mean, everyone's on the Heavy God hype train. I didn't realize Icy would be, again, he's not a star yet, but he's nowhere near as fraudulent as I thought he might be, so I'm excited for them. I've loaded up my picks. I'm making sure one of these is going to make it through. I'm gonna get the top half of this bracket winner. I'm pretty sure at this point.
Okay, yeah, Cloud9 are, they're surprisingly good. I guess sullied by the Cloud9 super team project or CIS super team. They're kind of easy to gloss over. I guess I didn't really think about it from the perspective. I never attributed the fall of Cloud9, like the Axile, Shiro, Nafany, that roster. I never attributed that to Nafany by himself. I feel like the players actually had a lot of reasons as to why they didn't change their structure. And I thought Axile was a part of that. That said, when you're rebuilding a team with the focus being Axile, you are going to be the star player. Then you get your preferences. You don't have to levy or weigh that up with basically anybody else in the team. Like, I see, for my scrutinies of him, is actually not a very resource-intensive player. Heavy God as well, in the ways that he has been playing even before this Cloud9 team. The numbers he puts up and the positions he plays, you'd actually kind of expect him to be pretty heavy resources, but he actually does just fly solo a lot, and does good enough in his spots to set his team up. I think there's a lot of resources being pushed over to Axile, and it is actually, I think, reflective in the way that he is playing. I think he is playing the way that he wants to, and the team are enabling that quite heavily. So, yeah, I didn't expect these more I guess Heavy God isn't really a static star, but he can be at times. But
that's
static
kind of what he was
stars
known for, right? It was Anchor, who's surprisingly impactful a lot of the time. In a bomb site, maybe there's someone else nearby, but he's generally just sat there, going to deliver, going to land all the right shots. That's kind of been how he made his name.
But it's Icy as well. It's kind of like Sun Pius before he had his actually slightly more aggressive arc, where Icy just always feels so safe, but that can work in different ways, and I guess it is working right now for Cloud9. So yeah, I'm surprised. I want to get my perspective shifted on Boomich, and I want my perspective to shift on, I guess, Groove as well, because I still don't think Groove does a lot. And I've never really rated Boomich as an in-game leader properly. I feel like a lot of it was propped up by the coaches that he had in his back-end staff.
100%.
I think
especially when it's Blade, it was a very intensive, a very interesting part.
Yeah, no, I agree. My major sore point is Inters. Guy does not seem locked in sometimes when he's playing his bomb sites. It looks like he hasn't played the game in 2 years, and I get that he is not mainly been on like the best teams, but it does seem like he is coming back from retirement almost. The awareness and his crosshair placement, like just individually, Inters feels very off at the moment. And I guess that's the major sore point I have on this team. But
yeah, look,
I'm
going to be
the
honest.
other pieces are fine. So.
In the initial series I've watched of him, I didn't think too much of it, but when you talk about it that way, it does make me remember the times I watched him play on like TSM, where I'm thinking, how the hell have you come out of tier 1, come to this level, and still you look below par? Like, that was shocking, that TSM stint. And yeah, there has been some elements of that I think carried over. I've just not been too worried, because I thought he doesn't need to do a whole lot. He just needs to make sure that everything else is still clicking. Like, if Axel says flash, he flash. There you go. If he's running over to the other bomb site, Heavy God says flash, flash. Like, yeah, if there's a smoke blocking CT on Mirage and you need someone to dive through it, yeah, enters, off you go. Like, that's kind of what his style was in Cloud9 too. Like, we all remember him as being super passive. If you watch their T-sides, after the initial BS where Nafany goes and dies somewhere, when they finally have to go execute, the guy diving out of apps to try and take B is Inters. Like, he's the first guy in, taking all the aggro, taking the death. He's just been a very willing, I guess,
sacrifice.
Yeah, I didn't want to use a word that was too insulting or demeaning, but he's been like, a servant for the roster historically, and I think he's going to fill that role here again pretty damn well. Just think this pick, too good to pass up as an underdog. Let's get your second one on the board, because it's... I've actually forgotten what it is.
I went with M80. And
right.
Listen, I understand. Lake ain't no mouths. I get it.
He's trying.
He is trying, and he's not doing the worst,
No.
to be honest. I actually did think that when they initially pulled him up, it was just going to be, guys, it's okay, we have Malbs at home, and it is just some bum that actually cannot shoot. But to be honest, Lake has been doing well enough, and I just like the way that M80 play. Like, I don't think there's much I can critique them for in terms of like the way they approach the game. I do think sometimes it does come down to whether or not they're good enough on the day. And I like Swisher. I think Slacks is, as much as I've been critical of Slacks through a lot of his career, I feel like that guy was in like some sort of horror film where you are trapped in the same decade, or you are trapped in like the same year for 10 years. He actually is the best AWPer in Germany currently, or I guess the best German AWPer that exists.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
Searson is no contest.
That's disgustingly, like, horrifyingly true.
I hate
is
that
the
it's
best
true.
German AWPer.
I do hate that it's true, but I also think he's gotten a lot more confident playing in M80, and I guess that's just him playing against North American players.
It does help.
Yeah, and I think that's actually helped him a lot, though, because the same thing happened for Holzerk. Like, I think Holzerk grew a lot by going to NA, and a lot of players will have the fear of, oh, I'm gonna lose my level, or I'm gonna play worse. No, you don't understand how much confidence and just knowing that you can dominate games actually does unlock something in your synapses or something. I think both these guys are on kind of a similar arc in that way. So I think they've got enough star-like players like Lake, Swisher, Rek. I think can all actually kind of do very, very well individually in games, even when they go back into European waters. So yeah, I'm kind of here for it, and I don't know. I like M80 as an org, like the way that they have been functioning. I appreciate them a lot, so I have a bit of a soft spot, and so I've picked them as my underdog.
Yeah, I really liked the roster when they had Malbs.
Sure,
that was one of my favorite teams to follow, to root for, to pick. Lake is an addition where I saw him pop up, and I was like, hold on, they've got that guy from my brief decision to go looking for talents in North America. Didn't take long to exhaust the full list, but he was one of them. He didn't end up being very relevant relative to others. Like the big one that came up was Jaber, who I think still has the most potential. But Lake was one of the people I was told, yeah, this guy's got a little something, you know? He's actually quite sharp relative to our teams. And like most NA players come up just because they are a bit sharp. No, this guy's, even by their standards, good with the mouse. So, no, I thought it was a decent idea, like a very good min-max attempt to sign him. It's just, well, you had Malbs MD before.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's gone to G2. Now, I love the Slacks confidence idea to like carry him forward, because there's actually something interestingly that came up when FaZe, the Swedish AWPer, went over to China.
Yes, yeah.
He dropped like ridiculous numbers. Like I'm talking 1.3 plus on like his worst week. And he came back to Europe, and he then immediately pretty much signs with Wildcard to go back all the way to NA. And he does an interview, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I didn't realize I had that in me. Like, I didn't realize I could take some of these peaks. I could actually, you know, challenge people, like push myself, and decide to take over maps. So I think Slacks has benefited somewhat from that. I just still struggle to see him as a top European talent. He's probably good enough here, though, and that's what matters. Like, for this team to have a chance, just a chance, to make a run past Falcons, past Complexity, past whoever comes out that lower section, there's still a chance. I think he's good enough for that. They have a great system. I love Sin as a caller right now. I think he's a hot prospect, a hot commodity in the calling department, because we don't really have that many callers coming up. And even a lot of established callers just don't get a good chance in top teams. Instead, Snacks gets signed. So great to see a young guy making a name for himself, grinding up. And if he can make a few upsets happen here, even with Lake on his roster, let's start giving him a lot more credit. And maybe M80 have to start taking a lot more risk, because they don't want to waste that.
I think as well, I guess the one maybe dark-ish spot on M80 is that I did think that they benefited from having Stamina as an analyst, and it's not M80's fault. I think Stamina is the one that stepped away and has gone back to playing. But he actually did seem to have a pretty... I think he had a positive... he left a positive impression with M80, and actually had... I did think it benefited them to have him. So that's, I think, a little sad for them to lose a mind like that, but also now Stamina has gone back to playing, and he is honestly just going back to farming in North America, and he's probably just like, why would I be an analyst when I am probably just a better player than quite a lot of the talent that's out there? So
yeah, that's fair, but he's honestly, to be blunt, if he ever sees this, yeah, just be an analyst. You'll play more international lands, or be attending more international lands as an analyst. No offense, mate.
Hey, well, you know, it's about what you want, right? It's about what you want out of it.
A lot of coaches do talk about this who were former players. There are some coaches who never were competitive, a select few. But there are those who were always say, like, you always have this itch to go back and actually play. And it feels so different to be, like, removed and not able to go do stuff. That they do find it hard when the offer comes around not to say yes to it. Like, it's a far more tempting offer to be a player than it is to be a coach. And I think that's why you'll see a lot of great IGLs we have, as the IGL market sort of dries up, just keep extending their career, find excuse after excuse. Like Carrigan, mate, he ain't retiring. Not anytime soon. He doesn't want to go be a coach or a desk talent or whatever the hell he'll do. Being a player apparently just scratches the itch so much better. So, not anytime soon. Right. To finish off the episode in terms of picks. This is a weird one. I've taken OG, which feels a bit odd, given their downward spiral. They've been rebuilding. They've made a concerted effort to make their team younger, stronger, leaner. Maybe not leaner, but definitely younger and stronger as fraggers. They've, had to replace the loss of Heavy God, which is a big, big loss. And they've also had to they didn't have to, but they recently chose to bench and replace Keto, bringing in Krizen and Buzz. which I think is really awesome.
Mhm.
Prison is only 17. Crazy young for an IGL. But has actually been, I think he's been a good year at least, IGLing the Mouse and XT side. Oh, borderline 2 years IGLing Mouse and XT, or at least playing then IGLing, under the leadership of Tobiz, I believe is the big man over there.
Sure.
So he's had a great 2-year stretch of development, playing in an international team. He's fully used to this idea. He gets to come in and bring his ideas. And they've taken a swing in the dark on a player like Buzz, who, whilst nobody really is going to, write stories about his time on Astralis, showed on Entropic that he, at least mechanically, is fairly solid, even on a team where structure's not great. You're not going to win a lot of games. You're going to have a lot of rough buys, a lot of rough situations. He still was able to put out some numbers. So I think they've made an astute pair of signings for a team who clearly aren't interested in investing right now. They're not spending a lot of money. They're going to rebuild, hope to make the major with young players. And once they get that stick of money, then we can think about trying to get some other picks, some other crazy pickups. But as it stands, they do have a couple weird little talents. Biku never really developed into a star, but I think on this roster has his role, plays it. No complaints. Nexus already has chemistry with Crizzen. They played a good amount of time together in Mouse and XT, and they were a sort of little dynamic duo. Despite this being one of the team's, I think, worst periods, they're still probably the best academy side in that time. And those two had great synergy and actually were able to do a lot of very impactful things for the Rifles on this team, despite being sort of supportive. Modo, never been one of my favorite AWPs in Tier 2, but I can't deny he is just typically very solid. I don't see a lot of big mistakes from him. I just don't see a lot of flashy things, which is what I look for when I'm watching young players. I want to see a mechanical excellence that surpasses the normal. And he doesn't provide that too often, but he's solid and stable. So I think the combination of what they've put together, the youth, there's a good chance that they can upset Heroic with this prep, with this time coming in. And then after that, your world's your oyster. NIP, far from an established team. Definitely still on the rocks, still a bit shaky. Wrinkle's going to give you a few rounds. He's going to take some risks that are maybe a bit over the line. And that, yeah, you have to take your chances. So we'll see how they do. I've picked them so I can talk about the youth, talk about the up-and-coming prospects, which they certainly have a lot of. My worst pick of my 4, I think, but certainly one I'm still willing to give a shot.
Yeah, it's also still on the same side of the bracket anyway. So, you're, like you said, you've kind of cast a wide net over that side of the bracket, and you're just hoping
one of them's going to make
one
it
fish.
through.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be FaZe, but I could have just picked FaZe and then 3 from the lower side. But the lower side teams just don't thrill me in the same way.
Sometimes the easiest option is the right one, as I've come to appreciate. I will push back. I think Modo is a little. I don't know. I don't actually ever really see him have games where I think he is good enough, even. Like,
I never said he was good enough. I just think, not a crazy... He's not Adex. He's not doing batshit stuff that loses you rounds outright. That's always been my qualifier for Modo. Is like, if you're building a tier 2 mixed team, he's a fine pick. You've not lost your entire potential putting him in the roster. You've not just gone, here's the loaded chamber, spin it and put it to my head. They've not gone crazy with him. That's the idea.
Yeah. He's just, I don't know. He's just it's so boring to watch him play. And it's not like he doesn't try and go for aggro things. It's just like when he does it, it's just so off the mark that I struggle to really back him. But I do think Buzz, I actually was a really big fan of Buzz before he joined Astralis. But I think it was also a big knock that he didn't get the vote of confidence. When they reshuffled and they were making roster moves, I think Device was one that sort of vouched for him to come into the team. They seemed to be thick as thieves, and then when push came to shove, it was kind of just like, oh well, goodbye, Buzz. We'll see you later. Device is game leader now, by the way, and you're not a part of that. You're gone. I do think the Entropic thing was a good. Honestly, it's a good test for an OG-like team because Entropic did just feel like OG version 2, And
yeah, the OG of tier 2, like the mixed team that never wins anything, but are just always there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, OG themselves are a bit tier 2, but yeah, I liked Buzz. I think he's a very explosive rifler, and I think he'll create more room so that Moto actually can do better. I think that's always something that they've maybe struggled with, is actually like a proper space taker on OG. And I think Buzz, well, at least Buzz's typical roles would be as that kind of space taker. I think even Heavy God wasn't really that guy. He was more so he was like throwing his other teammates out and then like getting good trades and finding multi-kills like that in the mid round. So yeah, I think it actually will do quite a lot to I guess prop up the rest of the team if Buzz actually does land on his feet here, because as far as I'm aware, he's like trialing / on loan sort of with OG.
There's some asterisk to his like
because Entropic don't have a team, so everybody is benched, and Buzz is one of those players that's benched. So yeah. So yeah. I did think about OG like when I was looking through, and I think they could upset Heroic, like given the way that Heroic are, with some maybe struggles integrating Dexter and finding something that works properly. I think they could upset them, and I think if I think they'll lose to an NIP, but if NIP somehow get upset by Amcal, now suddenly we're talking.
Well, we don't even know who the hell Amcal are right now, so
yeah,
that'll
that's
be
true.
Fascinating to find out.
Yeah, Amcal with their 1.6 KZ god in Topo.
Oh, is he a KZ kind of guy?
Yeah, he's apparently he's like one of the best 1.6 KZ players.
Great, good for him.
Yeah,
I'm sure that'll be real useful.
Oh no, I mean, actually AWPing and actually playing the game has been a little. It's not been great actually. It's really not been great. And I think this is my problem. I remember rating Esatag quite highly. Sorry, tangent. Because he actually is a very good KZer, and his rifling is okay. He's AWPs okay. He's a bit of like a multi-tool, and it seems like nobody wants that. Like they tried in NIP to get him AWPing to rifle. Like, hey, you're the multi-tool. We're trying to fucking find a solution here. Please be one of the solutions, and he never was. And so I have come to appreciate that just because you have good movement does not make you a good player. I found that out myself. The less I KZ, the better I got, actually. So I spend more time shooting.
I found one player ever in all of Prospects where I felt mentioning his movement had significantly impacted his gameplay, and that was actually Malbs. Like, he had a lot of really slick movement back in Go.
Sure.
But aside from that, I could not give less of a shite about how good a player is at KZ, about how much a player B-hops. I don't care. Like, practical wise, it's why I always say to people, if you still think like pros should have mouse wheel jumping, like scrolling, because it's better for B-hops, it's better for like the consistent jumps. No, just use spacebar and stop mouse jumping, you cretins. Like, it's so simple.
I do think right now is the worst time to be a movement type player. CS2 movement is not as good.
Fictional breed movement players.
Oh, well, I mean, you see some of the clutches that Modesty has pulled together. Like, I'm thinking about that Inferno one where, he's smoothly jumping up the hay bales and like darting back into the bomb site, kills the player short in a post plant. There are clutches and there are scenarios where actually having good movement does benefit you very actively. I think, unfortunately, CS2 B-hopping is dead, first off. Like good sort of air acceleration into following jumps. Like, there's a lot of things that suck about the movement to make movement style plays in CS2. So if there is ever a time to be a movement guy, now is the worst one. Actually, it is categorically the worst one.
Yeah, and quite importantly, opening kills and trades win more rounds than clutches. Like, just always will be the case. So yeah, I've never cared for it. But at least, it's a thing we can mention, because I had nothing to say about Topo at all. Just on that note.
Yeah, I didn't believe at first time people were like, "Oh, at first people were like, "Oh, he's a KZ god," and I'm like, "KZ god." I'm pretty ingrained. Like I do a lot of KZ. I'd never heard of the guy. I'm gonna search him up. KZ profile. Never KZ'd in Go or anything like that. Only 1.6. I had to like look through the 1.6 KZ forums to find his records and be like, "Oh my god, this is actually the same dude." I'm not as hardcore as these people. Like these guys are all 1.6 movement tech is a little bit like more fluid, blah blah. There's a weird Puritan's view on it. But it actually seems to have risen in popularity now that Go KZ is kind of dead because there is no alternative for CS2. And relaunching your game in global offensive sucks. So
yeah, I can understand why, in that sense, people who like those sort of community servers would have made the jump all the way back to 1.6. Like, if you're that desperate to jump on boxes all day, it's probably the best place to do it right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's fair. I personally don't get into it and don't see its full benefits, to be honest. Especially not if you're gonna lose fights for no good reason. Scrolling, right? Let's just
sorry, big pet peeve. The heavy-handed spacebar holders are also in the mud. I have this happen to me all the time where people are like, "Oh, he must have scroll wheel jumped." I've seen players on LAN, albeit UK LANs, albeit maybe the one LAN in Sweden I went to in DreamHack Winter. I have seen players heavy hand their spacebar and die because of that more than I have seen mouse wheel jumps. I will not stand for the slander. Mice are good enough now that you don't just have accidental input. Oh, sorry, it was a misinput on my scroll wheel. It jumped by itself. No. You either touched it or you fucking heavy-handed your spacebar. I will not stand for this.
That's fine. You can stand, not stand. I don't care. Sit in your chair. It just is what it is. Scroll wheel jumping, silly in competitive play, just like 4x3. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about Zero to Nasty. Just looking through the rest of the underdogs.
Yep.
Rare Atom, since they lost all their players to Tai Lu, just feel like a glitch that they're here. Like, I'm not sure how this happened. Was this during the Tai Lu playing with a terrible team period? Even really, no.
I think Tai Lu were playing with their coach.
Oh,
they were playing with they were playing with Joking or analyst. Sorry. So yeah, that was before they officially signed G. So that was definitely part of it. But also Kaze just kind of popped off for most of that, and then I think Li Hang and Child King also did very well. So, to be honest, the Rare Atom team, yeah, they're a little rough around the edges, and they probably won't beat a FaZe, which is, unfortunately the hardest draw they could have had in their opening round. If not, I could have maybe spun a thread, but
yeah, because there's an option for us to pick an Asian team. Usually we pick an Asian team. In this case, I think it'd been, even for our deluded cope, would have been real hard to go reaching for that.
Yeah, it was tough.
Incredible. But all right, I think we're going to wrap it up there. So yeah, those are our picks. I know the viewers have voted. I'm pretty sure the vote was like 60% and 70% for FaZe and Cloud9 respectively in terms of viewer picks. So that's going to be interesting to follow. Remember, members are better, so they get more content. They got this video early as well. So become a member and be a better person. That's how that works.
Yeah.
Leave a comment telling us why we're wrong. We always appreciate them. And as always, yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.